Hello everyone, welcome to the semicolon. In this tutorial, we are going to learn all the basics of Python required for the series Data Analytics with Python. But before we get started, I would like to show you how we install the Anaconda package. Follow these simple steps, type Anaconda on Google, click on the first link. Now this is the official URL and we are looking for this. I'll be using Python 2.7 version for Windows, and just to clarify, Python 3 and Python 2.7 or Python 2 aren't advanced versions of each other. Rather, Python 2 and 3 are just parallel versions. So you can choose your options from here depending on your operating system. And now, once it is installed, click on Start and type Jupyter Notebook and click on it. A page like this will open a new Python notebook. And we are done with our installation. Most of this series will be using Jupyter Notebook environment. So now let's get started with learning Python. You can also type IDLE in the start menu and use that environment to run the code. Or you can type it in the text editor, whatever is comfortable for you. Now let's start learning Python. So this is what we are gonna learn. We start with taking inputs, displaying outputs, for and while loops, if and else decision making, and some other data structures like lists and dictionaries. Let's begin with taking the inputs. We do it using the input function. Input parenthesis takes the input and stores it in X. We can also use raw underscore input and parenthesis and store it in Y. So press shift and enter to execute, and this, what we type through the keyboard, is stored in X and Y respectively. The type function gives us the type of variable. So now let's use it to show the difference between input and raw input. And we also learn how to display a variable. So print type of X and print type of Y. And press shift enter to execute, and what you can see here is type of X is integer, and type of Y is string. And raw input takes your input as string, whereas X assigns it to a default type based on the input. And this is what the difference is. Let's start about the decision making or the if and else branches in Python. So if X is equal to 1, then we print X is equal to 1. So if command has two parts, the condition and the command. If the condition is true, then the execution goes to the command and executes it. If it is false, then the execution goes to the else part and executes the command which is in the else part. So if our X is equal to 1, then it will print X is equal to 1. Otherwise, it will print X is not equal to 1. Let's press shift and enter to execute. But before that, you have to remember the indentation part. Now, this space is called indentation. This is very important in Python. And this is how the condition and the command are separated. So, if you press tab, the compiler will know that this is a command and this is a condition. Now let's do the same thing for Y and press shift and enter. For X it was equal to 1 because our variable was an integer, and for Y it is not equal to 1 because Y is a string and 1 is a number. So string is not equal to number, and that is why it is wrong. It is false and it executes the command under else. Now I'd like you to read about else if, which is pretty straightforward and very similar to else. Let's start learning about loops in Python. We'll learn about while loops and for loop in Python. Let's start with while loops. Now while loop again has two parts. J is equal to 10 is the initialization of variable 10. While j is greater than 5, the condition is j is greater than 5. And print j and j equal to j minus 1 are the commands which will be executed if the condition is true. So what happens is j is equal to 10, which is greater than 5, and it is true, and it prints 10 and decreases the value of j, and this happens in a loop till j is greater than 5. So that is how for loops work, while loops work. And for loops, so I would like to tell you about the range function. Now range of n gives us the values, a list of 0 to n minus 1. So this is what we'll be using for loops. When we type for I in range 5, I takes the value of each element in the list. So I iterates throughout the list, and therefore we print each value when we print I. So this is how for loops work in Python. Let's learn about the function calls in Python. A function is something which you'll call to perform a specific task which will be defined. So let's see how we define a function and call a function. So we define a function like this. We type def and type the name of the function, which can be a string, and parenthesis. Parenthesis takes the value which will be the input to the function, and here our function increments it and returns it. So return value will be the result of your function which will be returning. So how we call it is like this. We call the function by writing its name and passing a value, and it will return us whatever it is supposed to return, and it is returning us a number plus 1, our number plus 1, and this is how functions work in Python. Now let's start learning about lists or other data structures in Python. Let's begin with lists. Lists are just like arrays, but they are collection of many other variables or constants as well. So they store it in a sequence, and that is why we call it list. Now we can initialize a list by typing this: a is equal to 1, 2, 3 enclosed in square brackets. We can append something at the end of the list by typing a dot append and the number with it. We can even delete a value at a particular index. So here we are deleting something at index 1. Now let's see what happens when we execute this. So we print it out to see what happens when we execute. So now we have 1, 3 and 5. So initially our list had 1, 2, 3, then we appended 5, and then we deleted the 1 in position 1, which is 2. Now index starts with 0. You can also access the last element by typing -1. -2 would give you the second last element. Now let's learn about dictionaries. Dictionaries are like maps. They keep a mapping from a string to a number. So when we type x is equal to parenthesis, flower parenthesis, we create a dictionary which has index and value, and our index is a, b and c, and the values are 1, 10 and 11. So when we type x of a, we get 1 because we are accessing the value at index of 1, and we can do this similarly. If we can initialize or add new values by typing a new index and initializing it the value. So this is about dictionary. Now this is all what is required for us to start our course on data analytics with Python. So I'm very excited about this course, and I hope to see you there. Let's start right away from the next tutorial by learning about some basic libraries. Hit the subscribe button if you want to be updated, and hit the like button if this video helped you. Thank you.